You studied masters in music, but particularly in Gqom.
Yes.
Like, why? Let's start there.
Before I go to the actual academic side of it, I have to start with. I was gonna make a joke and say it all started when I was 9.
And your music, what's your journey been since you graduated and went into the music industry?
Journey has been very intriguing. There have been quite the number of collaborations, most specifically with the award-winning DJ and producer Prince Kaybee. Whilst I was actually starting my masters, we had our very first collaboration in the song Sonela, which appears on his crossover music EP. Worked on other situations with people that include Ngasii, Searchwell, Tyla. Like literally, I'm still trying to figure out. This is Tyla before her first real big hit, Getting Late. And we're super excited, busy hearing this lady. I'm here thinking, this little lady is so young. Not to call her little, to belittle her, but I'm like, I'm here meeting her at 18 years old and watching her write a song from start to finish in front of me. I'm here like, I was specifically kept here to be part of a songwriting situation. All I did was watch.
Who was 18, you or her?
She was 18.
Oh, okay.
I'm here watching her do the thing. I'm like, man, was I kept here to watch you? Because you are brilliant.
Every morning you ring in my heart. Not a day goes by without you as my star.
Ngasii?
Friendship.
Unjani?
Right when enjoying my friend.
Right, I can't complain when I'm. You studied masters in music, but particularly in Gqom.
Yes.
Like, why? Let's start there.
So, where can I start, honestly speaking? I think before I go to the actual academic side of it, I have to start with. I was gonna make a joke and say it all started when I was 9. But I think it actually did because there's a good friend of mine, one of my childhood best friends, Asa. He and I, pretty much every single holiday for a while, especially when he moved from our hometown of Cala to uThemhage to stay with his mom, Gqom, as it's called now. Stayed there, studied. First went to school before actually moving to Pretoria to go and study at Tuks. But whilst he was still back there, and even for some years whilst I was at Nelson Mandela University and he was at Tuks, he'd come home and sure as anything, man will pull up with whatever hot list of CDs he bought of a lot of pop music. And literally our version of hanging out would be like, okay, we get some snacks, pop the CD into the hi-fi stereo system at home, and we'd literally be going track by track, discussing this, that, and the other thing of what is going on in the songs. What would be very nice for us was to see how a lot of music from the States and sometimes the UK, because we listened to like a plethora of people. There was a lot of Beyonce, there was Adele, I believe there was Emily Sunday, Kelly Clarkson, like literally straight up pop. What a lot of these people would normally do is inside the CD jacket, like literally the cover of the CD, that booklet that they would include in there. A lot of it would be obviously photo shoots that are part of the theme and whatever else the album essentially wants to communicate. But specifically, I remember for Kelly Clarkson, because I had her Breakaway album, there were lyrics to each and every one of the songs, together with the credits of who was working on what portion of the song. And we'd have fun going through those things and gleaning and essentially seeing how much detail was put into making those albums. We'd literally be talking about everything. We'd be talking about the vocal performances. We'd be discussing and sometimes laughing at some of the lyrics that were chosen. We'd be going deep inside that situation. And that was, again, I think as early as 9, we were already having chats about the music. And instead of just saying, oh, I like this song, we'd literally be detailing everything. And as somebody who'd always been interested in music, like literally, I like saying as far back as from when I was 4, because my earliest memory is 1999 when I was watching the Spice World concert. I think it was on SABC 3, between 2 and 3, because they are normally the channels that will play stuff like that. We hadn't actually moved to the house that's currently my home back at Cala yet. We had been living at a different place. And my sister, being a fan of the Spice Girls, essentially was like, let's watch this. It's nice music. Let's have fun. And that's the furthest memory I think I have when it comes to music. I have some that go even further back. Anybody who's trying to be confused by the conscious babies that they've been seeing lately online. But that's where music for me started. So at 9, already thinking about music on a very deep level. I have a friend of mine who's essentially just as passionate about it, who's not necessarily, at least vocally, a musician himself. I remember there was a time he actually played a bit of violin. So there was definitely aptitude within music. So listening with what my academic supervisor already throwing towards the masters calls an orchestral ear, where you have this ability of breaking apart music instead of just simply hearing a song as the sum of its parts. You can, to a degree, hear it as the song, as the final product, or you can also essentially pick apart different instruments whilst the song is playing and know that, okay, I know there's a tambourine that's playing and this is the rhythm the tambourine is playing. I, from as young as 9, already had the ability to listen to both a song as the sum of its parts as well as those parts at the same time. So a song will be playing and I'll be able to pinpoint, okay, that's what the drum is doing, that's what this is doing, that's what this is doing. I like that vocal line they just did. That's what this is doing. So 9 is essentially roundabout when this started.
Okay.
But when it came to actually getting to wanting to do the masters in Gqom in particular, I'd already been someone who comes from, I'd say, a generation of people who've gone to school for, and especially tertiary education for a while. So my dad has a master's in English literature. My big brother has one in biokinetics. I am the one with music, and specifically musicology, which is the exact sort of thing of breaking music down and whatnot.
So you come from a family of academics, basically. And how did they take that? You wanting to go into music and specifically wanting to specialize in Gqom academically?
The Gqom part, honestly speaking, was, I don't want to call it superfluous because it's not like a very known thing really, and that's partly, or rather almost the main point as to why it is I thought this is something that's going to need to be done. Because they were just like, okay, so long as it is a master's qualification, if anything, my mother's still waiting for the red robe. She wants a PhD person because we somehow still haven't clocked that in the household.
And would it be in Gqom as well?
I'm not sure. It might. I'm not literally limiting any of my options. I like making a joke that might mess around and get a doctoral degree in Brenda Fassie.
And what specifically were you looking into in Gqom?
What I wanted to do, honestly speaking, because I knew that it was something that wasn't as detailed as those albums we were listening to when we were 9, going up until like our mid-20s, was giving people the kind of ability to know music, specifically Gqom, because it was the music that I very much resonated with at that time. Literally, it was 2016 when I was like, whatever this is me. And it really is me, because it's a music that's very reflective of the people who made it, which are very young people who come from circumstances that aren't necessarily the best. Specifically, one thing that I wrote within the paper, which I wanted to highlight, besides just saying that, okay, it's a young people's music, one of the angles that I put in there is that essentially the specific young people we're speaking of are the generation after the Kwaito kids. Because the kids of Kwaito were essentially promised the new South Africa, democracy came through, people voted, change was going to come. Literally, there were slogans busy going left, right, center. South Africa, alive with possibility. Vukuzenzele, there was a lot going on that a lot of these people, genuinely speaking, we're actually seeing some of. But as we know with the way our country, or rather as is popularly known with the way our country is set up, there's still a lot of people who are exactly where they were when the people who were the Kwaito kids and of that generation were originally. So I went and saw that, I'd like to speculate that this music might actually be, which music generally is, a reflection of how the people are feeling. Because as much as a lot of people are talking about, we're good, we're fine, it's a party and whatnot, a lot of the time, or some of the time, a good portion of the time, in Kwaito, the music also kind of reflected. It was a little more laid back than you would think, I guess, music would be of people who just came from a political crime scene. And with the upbeat situations, it's like it feels jovial and whatnot. This music is also very upbeat, but it has as many articles and papers that I went and sourced went and said, it has a very menacing feeling to it. It almost feels like, and this is where I went and wrote these things in, it almost feels like the people who are making this music and resonate with this music are somewhat disgruntled. Like they feel as though they were robbed twice. Like they were told by people who are now their elders, or Grootman or Sisi, that New South Africa, this, that, and the other thing. But they're sitting in the exact same shacks with them, with these opportunities that were spoken of missing. They're seeing these people who are promised something disgruntled, but speaking of a time that clearly doesn't exist for their realities, and are like, nah, where is our freedom actually? Like, where is it? So there are two camps that I explored, one of which I went down more, was
within the actual thesis.
Within the actual dissertation, to be specific. One person, Malidu, I believe is her surname, she's a person I cited. She did a mini dissertation at UCT. She wanted to, or rather she argued essentially that the music isn't necessarily a political statement, honestly speaking, because it's like, why would, at least from how it is I went and read it, why would it be that it would have to inherently be political? Because it's like, it is music, it's nice. I mean, you see the people reacting and consuming and forming identities around this music. They're not necessarily trying to say anything inherently political. A lot of the early Gqom music was very instrumental. There was pretty much nothing going on besides utterances and vocalizations. So trying to use it as a somewhat political statement is like, at least in terms of the actual making of the music. But the story that I think both of us have on the same track is that the circumstances that kind of brought about the music itself were things that were definitely, to whatever degree, politically driven. Because, again, you're an entire group of people who are told you essentially given so much potential, you have this potential, you have these opportunities, but somehow they're still inaccessible to you. So I was like, I, for one, actually want to give a very large spotlight to that, because I feel like it's a novel idea. I mean, a lot of people, especially when you happen to be, I'll say black, I'll say African, I'll say a people who, well, sometimes we are under the spotlight for essentially what we create out of our pain. But a lot of the time people will dismiss what it is we do, especially when it's not explained to them as, oh, they're having a jolly good time. And I'm like, no, we're not. Like, I actually even went as deep down as to explaining somewhat the instrumentation choices. Some people would normally say that besides the menacing, minimalist, and broken beat vibe and aesthetic that the music has, they'd say it sounded cheap because of the quality, or at least the perceived quality of the instruments that were used in the music. And I was like, well, that can also be seen as something political as well. Because again, remember, the people who are listening to this music are not exactly in the best of circumstances. They got money to be buying drum kits, guitars, trumpets, trombones. They essentially have what's in front of them. There was a name that I believe it was either DJ Target Nondile in a bubblegum TV video on YouTube. It's either them or Spukado. I can't remember. But one of them mentioned that one of the earliest names that Gqom had was Utsin, aka a tin can. Because, well, that's kind of what people thought they were hearing. There's another one, I can't remember the name, but it kind of translates to a jerrycan, like one of those big plastic bottles that carry various things. I see a lot of them either carry oil, they carry like cooking oil. I can't remember what other things that it's used for, because I'm not gonna lie, my own upbringing had me always see an empty one. I'd never necessarily see the original product inside. So some people would put cooking oil or use it for collecting water. And that was another, it was a Zulu name, but I can't remember it right now, another early name of the music. So a lot of me is like, so they're kind of slightly speaking towards this point I'm trying to make, that this music really is of a people who don't have that much, such that the early names of it resemble things that's the only thing that actually have. Because again, there's not enough money going around, so you're not necessarily going to have quality.
Like, I can almost understand that, because what I associate with Gqom, me personally, is violence.
Okay.
You know, like I most especially listen to Gqom when I'm at the gym. You know, like there is a you know, there is this very visceral thing about it, where you're like, never mind everything else, just mind what's happening in this moment. You know, and there's so much happening in your ears when you're listening to it. You're like, but then it's vibey at the same time. So so when you're talking about how certain people might see it as being too simplistic, calling it ican or whatever. Another part of that is the violence that is usually associated with it. You know, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but when I listen to kids actually taking in Gqom, when I go back home in the Eastern Cape, in the townships, and I'm like, what are you actually listening? Which part are you listening to there? Because if you're just sitting around as a group of boys and you're having a Gqom album playing in the background, I'm like, okay, cool. Where's which parts are you enjoying the most in this entire experience? Because when I'm listening to it, I'm doing something specific. I'm not really listening to it, but I'm doing something specific, and it's geared me towards this specific task that I'm doing. You know, you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, because very interestingly enough, my own academic supervisor, Dr. Glenn Holtzman, I will always herald that man. He himself actually saw that his, what's the saying, come to glory, something along those lines. Him finally understanding the way, at least enough for him to see exactly what it was that I was seeing. Because I came super excited, busy saying, there's this music, I'm trying to not necessarily unearth it, but definitely in the space of academia, unearth it, get people talking about it, get people inspired to write about more musics that really need to be in South Africa's university space. He was like, I hear it and I see it, and I understand the general concept of like the music of y'all specific generation young people, because he himself is not actually, he's not that much older than me. That he's literally like, I see it, but I'm not necessarily sure I see it just yet. It was when he, I think, did a similar thing to you, and put it in the concept, or the context rather, of doing something alongside it. When he finally saw that, there's a sense of urgency this music is assisting me with in doing the thing that I want to do. So for you, you're literally in a space where you're like, I'm doing a workout. And generally speaking, a lot of people who work out to music with their headphones, maybe even whatever's playing at the gym, experience a better workout when the music essentially aids in what you're doing. And sometimes, at least I like to speculate that it's music that kind of, I think, pushes you towards what you're trying to do. And that's normally music that kind of has a sense of urgency. There's like a vibe or a beat or just a spark that's kind of like, it's making you want to do something. And I pinned or rather like to pin stuff like that to the general thing that I've seen with a lot of music, but in particular, I'd say African music in general, specifically because a lot of our music is very dance forward. The music is a call, your body is the answer. It's literally giving you something sorry, yes, thank you. I'm literally doing it so lightly, but in any case, it's giving you something to do. It's literally calling out to you. And because it's the kind of music that it is, it's vibey, it's thumpy, it has a lot going on. For some people who happen to essentially understand that call physically, because you mentioned that it is a visceral feeling, your body is going to essentially give it the most appropriate answer. So in the workout sense, if it is you're pumping iron, if it is you're on that treadmill, that's the answer. You kind of have this feeling of, I'm not necessarily going to call it satisfaction, but I'll call it completion. It's like, yeah, this feels right. This music drives me to do the thing I'm doing even more. So for the boys elokishini in the locations, in the Ngasiis, I would like to think that, generally speaking, it feels like a different kind of call, but in essence, it's still a conversation that they're having. They've had these thoughts in their mind, and this music is essentially echoing those thoughts. It's echoing those feelings of, yay, I am mad where it is I am. Yay, things are difficult, depending on their age. Yay, that maths test was not nice. Like, it really is what music often is for a lot of people, an escape.
And you as a musician and your brand of music and your voice being gentle and more slow and smooth, how do you reconcile those two realities of your own music is unlikely to be a Gqom song anytime soon, and yet that's your specific study? You know, how did you balance that one?
Two things. One, so many people have the assumption that because I have such a tiny little voice and sing about the various topics I do, I don't necessarily say I stray away from love, but there's a lot of actually focusing on emotions and kind of almost giving people a catalog large enough so that whatever emotion they're going through, they can actually dive deep into whatever they're feeling instead of running away from it and finding vices and essentially putting themselves into a cycle they can't get themselves out of. I like to think that sometimes things in songs are 4-minute medicine, because you'll hear the song and think, why exactly did this person detail my entire life? People will hear that of me and not think that I would like tracks that are essentially full of energy. There's a lot of energy hidden behind a lot of what it is I write, a lot of the music it is that I make. There's a lot of kinds of music that it is I'm trying to have fun making, trying to synthesize it in the greater story of the career that I am building. And Gqom is actually a kind of music that includes that, because besides just personal emotion that people go through, and this is my second point, there is the collective emotion that people go through. And that music is a music that's clearly of a people. It's clearly of a specific demographic, but doesn't necessarily have to be that demographic alone. As with many different genres, music will hit people, or specifically Gqom hits people, very differently depending on who it is you are and what it is the music means to you. Like the kids in your Ngasii, like yourself in the gym. So I'm the person who's like, this music is bigger than me, and I love being part of things that are bigger than me, because they make me feel like I am part of something bigger than me.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm giving of myself to a cause that no matter what happens, I know that is happening. Like, the cause is going forward. Mine could even simply just be a spectator and a reporter. I don't have to be anybody who's given any kind of accolade of he did this, he did that, because I'm like, the thing was already there, and again was bigger than me. I am, at least in my own eyes, maybe I might be too magnanimous for my own good, but I am not necessarily bigger because I joined the bigger thing, because I wasn't looking to be bigger. I was looking to be part of a collective of the bigger thing.
And your music, what's your journey been since you graduated? and went into the music industry?
Journey has been very intriguing. There have been quite the number of collaborations, most specifically with the award-winning DJ and producer Prince Kaybee. Whilst I was actually starting my masters, we had our very first collaboration in the song Sonela, which appears on his crossover music EP. It is a favorite song of mine, mainly because I've seen that normally, for some reason, when it is I'm going to do something big, I am not necessarily my healthiest. Days before recording this song, my voice was making no sense whatsoever. I literally arrived Monday night. We recorded into Tuesday morning before I went back home. Literally flew from Gqeberha to here in Gauteng, here in Transberg. And here we are, things is being set up. It's a Monday night. I'll have all of this on my YouTube channel and have fun telling the story. He's literally setting up a brand new mic he just bought that I was the first person to perform into. We had so much fun. I'm here watching him basically do other tracks of the EP and everything, and I'm here like, this is such an experience. This is fun. Did that track, recorded it into the night. It came out 27 September 2019. It's a big moment. You necessarily can't really forget dates like that. Further than that, or other than that, because of that one man, a lot of people, folk that I've either had the pleasure of meeting or even gone beyond that and spoken to at length, worked on other situations with, people that include Ngasii, Sertwell, Tyla. Like literally, I'm still trying to figure out. This is Tyla before her first real big hit, Getting Late. And we're super excited, busy hearing this lady. I'm here thinking, this little lady is so young. Not to call her little, to belittle her, but I'm like, I'm here meeting her at 18 years old and watching her write a song from start to finish in front of me. I'm here like, I was specifically kept here to be part of a songwriting situation. All I did was watch you.
Who was 18, you or her?
She was 18.
Oh, okay.
I'm here watching her do the thing. I'm like, ma'am, was I kept here to watch you? Because you are brilliant. She is such a... Well, clearly the whole world knows now. She is such a star. Like, so many people. I've met so many people. We did other tracks with KB in that time as well. The 2020 was when the writing that I was doing with Ngasii and Sertwell happened. We did writing for an album that came the year after. I did a song called Love Song for the Fourth Republic album. The year after that, I was on a track called Cala on his Gemini album.
Ooh, I think I jammed to that one at the gym.
I love it when people say this because I'm like, that was the quickest song we did. I literally showed up. He'd actually been in Gqeberha at that time. Was November 2021? It was November 2021. He had come over, pitched up at a wonderful location, did like a young makeshift studio, and it was like, here's a beat, try singing something like this. I was like, I'm hearing these lyrics to it, and that's literally it. I just piled up that exact line layer by layer, and that's literally how the song came about. Next thing was like, okay, I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. The next year, some months later, it's a cute phone call of a friend checking in on a friend, and I'm like, it's so nice to hear from KB. Next thing I'm being sent, I'm being sent a list of essentially like a folder of tracks that are like, okay, here's the situation. I'm being sent paperwork. I'm like, wait, what do you mean the song's going on the album? It was so funny. I'm like, we were just riffing. What do you mean the song's going on the album? And now people literally kept saying, wow, what a song. I'm like, It's almost what.
But then is that maybe something to do with imposter syndrome?
Oh, definitely.
How do you deal with that?
I don't want to say I don't, because running away from things, as you've just heard with how it is I write lyrics, is not a thing that I do often. It's something that I think I have fun diving into at an angle. Because kind of going head first is like, I don't know how to deal with you because I'm quite literally being told, wow, insert superlatives and lovely comments here, because that's kind of how weirdly fuzzy I feel when people say the things they say to me, because I'm here like, I get it because I'm purposefully working towards you getting to say this. But you actually saying this is actually like, the feedback is confusing.
But then explain to me why you walked away from YouTube.
Oh, that's a fun question. I did not walk away from YouTube.
You walked away from, you haven't posted in what, 10, 11 months? What's happening
posted. There? What is happening is...
With over 20,000 subscribers, by the way.
The 20,000 subscribers came from what they called in a seminar that I attended by YouTube, hosted by YouTube Online, was... They call it heroes content, which is essentially any video, any kind of piece of content that you release that, to a degree, is somewhat bound to gain some attention and some traction, mainly because the topic that you are covering in it is topical. So anything that's kind of like you're doing a Christmas special, you are doing Mother's Day, Father's Day special, or anything that is going to be centered around something that is currently topical is heroes content. And my heroes content, which was pretty much down my line of explaining the wonders of South African music to people, was a video I titled The Power of Jerusalem. Right when the song by Master KG and uNgasiirwe was trending worldwide. Okay. So my little channel that used to have, what was it? I was at 500 subscribers. I was celebrating. Just the previous year. Hit my 1,000. And that video actually helped me hit my 1,000. And then again, because the song was trending, the video went and trended too. At least.
How long after you posted the video?
Days.
Days. Oh, okay.
Literally, I hit 1,000 subscribers, and there was a consistent trend of each and every week I gained a new 1,000 subscribers up until 11. So literally 10 weeks straight, a new 1,000 people showed up.
Ooh.
The video is currently sitting at 1.5 million views. And I'm not going to lie, imposter syndrome decided to say hi. I know you're excited, but can you really replicate this? You know that song is the reason that this video is there. So I'm like, well, I'm going to keep going. I mean, let's have fun. And to kind of explain why I'm saying I didn't walk away is mainly because I am this person who, anybody who is a long-time stan of Chin, which is the name of my channel, TYHN, for anybody who's looking for it, because I swear I'm coming back. I post I post shorts more than I do long-form videos. As much as that's also somewhat, when it is I can, it's a lot more frequent than the long-form videos.
But your long-form videos are not that long, though.
I love that they're not that long. I'm not gonna lie. I started my channel when I was a full-blown university student. I was doing my final year in my bachelor's qualification. I had a laptop that, honestly speaking, if it didn't fight me as much, would have turned me into a bigger YouTube star, because I'm not part of the thing of entering imposter syndrome at an angle. I am acknowledging that some people see me as a star. I take it, and I'm very appreciative. But I know very well that I could be at a different caliber had the tiny things like that. I'm very aware that a lot of people don't let the circumstances stop them. My name is Ngasii. I've met a lot of people. But with what I had, I made it work. And I'm continuing to make it work because I have a lot of things that I'm actually shooting. I'm one of those people who definitely stockpiles when it comes to content, which was seen in my very last post last October, which was literally a beautiful reel of what's been happening in my life, together with what is going to be coming through on the channel. And I'm sticking to it. I know my timelines what's the word I'm looking for? Suggestions. And this is exactly why I believe in that video I didn't actually mention pretty much when things would be seen. I just put a promise out that they would be seen, and they're going to be seen. Like, I'm actively working on it. There are a few tiny little commitments here and there on different platforms that I'm working on currently, and that's why they go out a lot quicker. But for the YouTube, I haven't left. I am definitely someone who's going to be seen there again. If anything, we're going to be pumping a lot more than, and this was the running joke, a video a week for 3 weeks and then nothing for 3 months. That was literally how I used to post. It was literally video, see you in November. It was literally so funny because I'm like, I swear I don't need to do this. But genuinely, again, I had a lot of commitments actually. It wasn't just my qualification, it was my qualification. I was part of the Nelson Mandela University choir.
Ooh.
We were busy people. We found ourselves Mvezo once.
For?
There was an opening of a school named after one of late great Dad Mandela's children, who's also a late peasant. That was 2015. It was literally on a whim. Like, I can't remember which of the Mandela grandkids showed up. It was one of the kids or the grandkids, I can't remember. But they showed up to our choir conductor's house on some, hey, so we're like, we're opening a school and we want the choir to be there because, well, it's our daddy namesake choir and y'all is good, show up. So there we were told with like a few days notice that we're going to be busing from Gqeberha all the way to the Mthatha side. Some people couldn't make it, some of us went and could. It was a fun experience. There was travels to Macau in 2015, travels to Shanghai and Nanjing in 2017, a lot of trips to Cape Town. So I'm this person who's like, a lot of people are like, you need to show us all of this. I'm like, guys, did you hear how much is actually happening all at once? So there's a lot of things backed. I was actually having fun looking at the footage, putting together the video from last October 2023 and thinking, there's some videos that are going to make a lot of sense. Sadly, for people who want to see them now, a little later. Because there's like an overarching story that's now being told with the many things that are happening, because it's a very beautiful thing. It's one of those documentary style things now. As much as vlogs are essentially a documentation of a certain period, this feels like one of those specials that you'd seen from, specifically I believe it was the E channel, the one that used to play or still plays all the things that put together with like entertainment, so movie stars, musicians and whatnot, and how they like detail people's lives from up until the point that they're actually being interviewed in their testimonials. They'd show this, that, and the other sort of situation. It almost feels like I'm compiling a movie on the side. Do not quote me. You already know my YouTube track. Do not quote me. Slightly quote me, but don't quote me. But it's literally that situation at this point. So there's some videos that are developing stories, and I would like to have them be something that makes complete sense, or at least enough sense for, even if things will still continue to develop, that I'll be like, this is this amazing sort of situation of circumstances that went and happened, and I'm so happy that I get to share it with you at this point. What's to happen next, we don't know.
You mentioned you traveled a lot when you were in the Nelson Mandela choir.
Yes.
What travels have you done since you left Nelson Mandela?
Most recently in February. In February, I found myself on a cruise ship.
Oh yeah, how was that?
I want to go back on the cruise. That's exactly how that was. It was incredible. Mainly because it was really a, what can I call it? I don't want to call it a bucket list item, because I need to do it again. I kept saying that I am a South African, much like TM, Tabombeki. I am an African. And I love the concept of getting to see Africa. I'm a humongous fan of the lady Poppy Sbia, who does a great deal of travels. 3 seasons into the Poppy show, I've seen and learned a combination of so much that I never would have known had I not watched her podcast, but a good bit of things that I actually happen to know because of my own travels. Funny enough, because of February, because in February I found myself literally called 2 days before flying to Zanzibar in Tanzania, layover in Kenya, to Swahili-speaking nations, Swahili being a language that is famously, or maybe now hopefully will be famously, very, very similar to a lot of languages we speak here in South Africa. The syntax, the grammar, literally the way sentences are constructed is super similar. So you, as someone who speaks any one of the Fongoni languages, being Xhosa, Zulu, Ndebele, Swati, and I went and actually found out to a degree, if you speak Sotho, Tswana, and Pedi perhaps, I'd love to get to know a lot more Venda and Tsonga for me to be able to see the exact same thing I'm seeing now. But if you speak any of those 7 languages I mentioned, learning Kiswahili is probably going to be a lot easier than you think because of the way that the sentences are constructed. There are some words that are exactly the same to what we would say.
Yeah, I know water is pretty much the same thing. Amans.
Maji.
Manji.
M-A-J-I. So, how would you say you're drinking water? I'm not going to make a fool of myself.
Don't. But it's interesting that you bring up, sorry to cut you off, up Swahili being so similar to other South African languages.
Yes.
And I think Julius wants to have Swahili as the continent-wide language that Africans use, and if the similarities between like the Nguni languages and Swahili is the same with other countries, I think we that's something that we'd be able to do in the not too distant future if the will to want to do it is there.
It could make sense because from what it was I watched once again on the Poppy show is that Poppy went and explained that, at least in the context of the place she was, I believe she was in Zanzibar, interacting with Zanzibari people. The language of commerce in that space was Swahili. So much like English is our language of commerce here, and to the world that knows it within this country of ours, Afrikaans to a degree as well. Over there, if you don't speak Swahili, not much business is going to be happening so long as you're involved. Like literal business. She was seeing that people really communicate and talk monies, talk expansion, and talk all sorts of things that go with the world of expansion when it comes to commerce in Kiswahili. So if it were that we were a people who indeed wanted to perhaps use that language or get it taught far more frequently across the board and essentially it become our lingua franca here in Africa, we at least have about 10 of the East African countries that currently have it, kind of showing us that communicating with each other is a thing that makes sense. Obviously dialects are going to be different, but if you know like the root language, kind of like how some of us in South Africa are quite communicable still, even though our languages will be different, like a Xhosa and a Zulu, it would probably be a very interesting thing to see at least.
And in your travels, how do they how do they react to his cause?
I will tell you, one random time I found myself in Uganda. I think it was the clicks. But I was found out quickly. It's like, are you from South Africa? I'm like, yes, how did you know? It's like, I just know. I'm like, I swear it's because I am clicking. There are very few languages that genuinely click. It's literally Southern. No one that I at least know in the East African region will feature clicks in their language. I actually, just slight tangent, shocked a few people whilst I was in Zanzibar with the little Swahili that I do know, which was so funny to me because they, like people would when it is they see someone who looks much like themselves, came to me speaking Swahili first, which was so intriguing because I'm like, I swear, I think I'm dressed much like a tourist. I have a camera hanging on my neck. Camera is right here. I'm wearing shades and shorts. I clearly look like I'm not from here. Why are you then coming to me and saying, Mambo? Who do you think is going to reply to you? But because it's me, I'm like, poor Mambo. And yeah, this young boy is literally looking at me like, do you know, can you speak Swahili? And I'm making it worse like, kidogo, just a little bit. I'm like, So I was genuinely shocked, but I'm here like, I'm more shocked at you greeting me, Mambo, which means like, how are you? Like, hi. I'm here like, why would you do that first? Yeah. And that's like 3 different interactions I had with Zanzibari people. That's the thing that I got. I'm like, why are you greeting people with mambo? I'm at the airport. You know I came from South Africa.
But we all do that. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
me, bro, when I say a black
That's what I'm
person,
saying.
I know I'm in Gauteng. But the Gyan in me is like, sure, bro.
And it's literally what we'll do. It's almost kind of like a test. It's like, let's see where you are according to where I am.
And that kid's reaction is the reaction that I usually get from people because, like, they see this face, you know, and they're like, why is this colored man speaking? Why is this colored man speaking Xhosa?
No, it is so fun and it's so funny. But like just wrapping up the idea of being in Africa, because I'm not going to tease that I was getting to see a bit of our continent without mentioning that it was Tanzania through Zanzibar. It was Mombasa whilst I was on the cruise ship. Super mad because I didn't have a visa. I couldn't get off the boat and actually enjoy Mombasa. It was my biggest joy. The whole time I was just like, oh, Mombasa.
How long were you docked there?
Nah, just a day.
Oh, okay. Read a book.
I would go back to Mombasa. I need to see Mombasa. Then we headed off to the Seychelles. We were on, I believe they called it Bova Beach. I'm hoping it's Bova Beach because that's all we kept calling it. Gorgeous, like literally water's a different kind of blue, the sand a different kind of white. The vibes were immaculate. It literally just felt so nice and also incredibly familiar. We were having just random chats with the locals and we're kind of seeing y'all's phenotype is rather familiar, especially when it comes to like colored South Africans. I'm not sure what their entire makeup or who did what just yet, because I haven't dove into that just yet. But speaking with this one lady, whom honestly speaking, if you get tagged from that Bova Beach situation and put anywhere in South Africa, felt like a colored Danny. Like she felt so warm. She had wonderful energy. It's like, hi, good morning. Hi, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you? It felt so much like home. It was so nice.
It's so funny that you are the one that is so surprised at the warmth of another person when you are just out there just hugging strangers.
That's literally what I'm doing. I'm just saying hello to anybody. So it's not even just how shocking, how warm it was she was. It was just kind of like a... It's kind of like a pleasant surprise. You don't know what you're going to get where it is you go. So when it is you see something like that, it's kind of like, I wasn't shocked because, wow, you people were insert superlatives here. It was just kind of like, I obviously have no baseline or point of reference for this. So whatever it is I'm going to see is going to be like a, wow, when I went, I'm always a storyteller who will make very sure that this was my experience. Don't go and tell people that this is what you saw, because it's not what you saw, it's what I saw. But from what it is I saw, are lovely people in Seychelles.
And in your travels, what are people's perceptions of South Africans?
In Zanzibar. Where are you from? South Africa. Oh, Bafana. Because they were doing well at that point. It was just so nice. It's like, so when you as a team are actually popping, Africa
Is this during the
seeing you.
AFCON?
This is,
Okay.
So I'm like, when y'all are popping in AFCON, y'all are actually a flag we can raise. Because literally everywhere in Zanzibar, like, where are you from? South Africa? Oh, Bafana. Every single place that I and any of the people, like my fellow crewmates, were going, that's the thing that they would... I think they said that in Seychelles as well. Like, literally, Bafana doing well in AFCON did well for us. Because I think the original one would probably have been Nelson Mandela, which would be like, so much happened since 94. So hearing Bafana is like, actually, thank y'all for doing good this time. Because, wow. Because they're literally excited. They're like, South Africa, Bafana. I was like, sure.
Like, it's actually so important for us to travel Africa because we have an unfortunate, and you brought up Poppy. Poppy was on the podcast and she was talking about how she wants South Africans to experience Africa and not the situations of the African nationals that we find coming here in destitute situations. Because when you ask other African nationals, do you want to come to South Africa? Maybe on vacation or whatever, but there isn't that desperation of, I am hungry to go to South Africa. It's like, nah, it's chill. I'm okay. I'm cool with this teaching job. I'm cool with this business that I have. I'm cool with this farm that I own. I'm cool with, people have an idea even other black South Africans have this very incorrect idea of what it means to live outside of South Africa as an African. You know, it's like just this idea of destitute poverty. And it's not like that. Yes, there are people coming here because there's always going to be people that want a better life somewhere in the world. But then it does not mean that that's just the narrative of those countries, because if you do actually travel Africa, you find that most African countries have a history that is so different from South Africa that they are the opulent society members. They own the media, they own the land, they own the resources, they own the banking, they own the political structure, they control things, you know. And then we experience the individuals that then come from the lowest, spectrum of those societies, where like, okay, cool, I'm not part of this power structure. So if I want a decent life, I'm gonna go look for it somewhere else.
Yes.
And those are the African nationals that we experience, and that's not a clear picture for the whole continent.
It's not a clear picture at all, because I'm remembering that where was specifically Stone Town in Zanzibar. I remember seeing a combination of sort of architecture there. There's some very lovely to look at buildings. There's some buildings that would make you think that, with the current perception that quite the number of South Africans would have, that people who are living here, you're probably going to find them in South Africa very soon, because these buildings are dilapidated. They're living whatever, this, that, the third. And I'm here thinking, I would love, like you're saying, like Poppy says, for a lot more South Africans to really have I'm not even sure how it would be done, but a picture of what other African nationals look like, where they're actually from for real. Because I think of how there are some people that are living nice in some of these countries. Like, if anything, there's some, what you were mentioning with how some of them really kind of like have ownership over like their government, their media and whatnot. I'm thinking of how we as people who are performing on that cruise ship, in particular, my friend Cindy Ndlovu and I were these peeps who were actually like asking questions like, what's it like over here like in Seychelles in this area? We saw a lot of houses on hills that were not owned by the upper echelons of the people in Seychelles. They were owned by people who have the kind of professions that would make you think, okay, I can see you having a nice house, but not a house on a hill. Like literally, I think saying something like, I can't remember, it was not like, maybe I will say for the sake of me trying to remember, think of a school principal, not of a private school, not of the best school in the country, but for all intents and purposes of this conversation, run-of-the-mill school principal living in a house on a hill. That's the image. We're like, what do you mean? Apparently, quite a lot of people receive subsidies from the government, if it is, I'm not mistaken. Quite a lot of people essentially have like a distribution where it's like, we are not necessarily looking to have people be destitute. So the way they structure things kind of makes it difficult for beggars and the unhoused to actually exist. To a degree. Obviously, we were shown one portion of it. Again, I need to study more. But from what it is, because again, we were also tourists. But having said that, you can be a tourist in South Africa and your tour guide will also give you a beautiful picture of where it is we are. But there will also, because you're going to have someone who wants to like get the lowdown, tell you a bit of the lowdown. And from what it is that at least we saw from the nice bits that we saw, it was a very interesting thing hearing that. And seeing that, okay, we're literally seeing these different corners. We obviously saw the kind of, I'd say, person or peoples who look like they're really kind of living hand to mouth. But that's kind of like a feature of essentially a lot of places where...
Even in first world countries.
Very much so. So it's kind of like we are getting to see so much more than we are shown. And it's nice. We get to see the similarities, we get to see the differences, we get to see the synthesization, that is not a word, but let's go with it today, of how it is we are, how it is they are, and how it is we are as a collective of Africans. Because really going down the east coast of Africa was kind of a thing of, there are at least 3 more coasts that can be explored. Because again, it was just the east. So it is Zanzibar, it is Seychelles, there was Madagascar, there was Mauritius. There was a little bit whilst I was flying home with my layover Réunion, which is apparently still a department of France, but is essentially kind of like real close to us, honestly speaking. This person is like, if they were to, well, just be a fully fledged country, that would be our 55th country here in Africa. And they also seem like a rather nice people, French-speaking folk, as you can imagine. And I'm seeing all these things, and I'm like, it's very interesting getting to see, like, everything, honestly speaking, even like the phenotype when it comes to the expansion of Africans many, 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 many centuries ago, and seeing how y'all look so much like us, but you're so far away from us in terms of kilometers. It's a very interesting thing to see.
Like the mere fact that there is similarities in our languages makes me suspect that there has to be similarities in the structure of our cultures, because in South Africa you have clan names.
Yes.
And if we have similar languages, then there surely has to be similar tribal, divisions where I am elephant, whatever, the Ondlovu has to be, mirrored somewhere else in Africa.
Very true.
So that doesn't surprise me too much. I mean, even the 22andMe, the service in America, 23andMe, they look at your genetic makeup and where you come from, and Africans have the most diverse genetic makeup in the world, which says we are the original people. So the fact that we look alike does not surprise me at all. The one thing that confuses me is like the size difference between Africans, because South Africans are small compared to those guys in Central and East Africa. Like,
yes,
they are
speaking.
giants, yo.
Central West, because East, you probably get, if I'm not mistaken, Kenyans who might be tall. Those are people who are descendants of Nilotic people who essentially are from the regions alongside by the River Nile, as the name Nilotic would show. You will get people in the West.
So Nigeria side.
Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Togo, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure about Ivory Coast. Maybe Ivory Coast. I've seen people who are at least on the taller side from Ivory Coast. I'm not sure of their essential ancestral markers just yet, but I do see that thing. One thing that's very intriguing about them that I see very often is how, speaking specifically with their muscular structure, there are people who are just naturally fit. Their bodies, generally speaking, again, generally, because I need correction for anybody who actually knows far better, but from what it is that I've seen, I've had a few people in my life growing up, a few people that I met in varsity. There will be people who obviously, in terms of specifically the men, who will do workouts and go to gym and whatnot. But generally speaking, their bodies definitely tend to be built a lot bigger than a lot of people that you would meet on the general idea of a South African down here.
I suspect that has to do with generations of superior food.
Sure.
Because in university, I dated a woman from Uganda.
Oh, hey.
And when she would go home, she would come back, like international flights, you pay for your luggage.
Money.
And she would legit pack an entire bag just filled with certain foods that you can't get in South Africa. And they taste so much better. Even the food, like corn, that side. Like just things that we have, but then if it's grown that side, it tastes so much better. And you're like, okay, there's more nutrients here. The soil is probably richer, it's probably cleaner. South Africa is more industrial, so there's probably more pollution as well. But then generations and generations between now and pre-industrial times, they just had superior nutrition.
For a much longer time.
For a much longer time. So I'm sure that plays a part into it.
I can hear that.
It's interesting that you bring up Upopi. because one of the things within this conversation of South Africans traveling and seeing Africa is one of the values that I appreciate that uPoppy gives is an insight into Africa that would have otherwise been told from a perspective that is not of someone who will consider themselves like an African.
Mm-hmm.
It's always outsiders coming from the US or whatever. I'm going on a whatever trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very shallow. You know, there isn't a deep appreciation or respect for the cultures that are being shown to the world. But when it's us that are there in those communities that are participating and, you know, really taking it in and having a reference point, not only of the culture, but of the people, because you see yourself, like you said, in the person who's telling you this history of their country and their language and their culture. And there's a difference when it is an outsider doing that. When it's an insider, there is more of an intimate exchange of wisdom and knowledge and experiences that an outsider will not have an appreciation for. For them, it is Africa, going, cue the typical drum music type thing that you do in movies, But for us, it's like, it's mutabao. You are visiting a part of the family. You are just visiting your cousins, even though you've never met. You're from different countries, but you there's something more familiar to you trying to tell an African story from the perspective of being an African yourself. And so when I look at uPoppy and the Poppy show, I think she's working on season 4 now.
Yes.
When I look, and I think it's going to be in Europe, it's going to be it's going to be so great. I don't know if it's season 4 is going to be Europe or the current shoot that she's doing now is season 4 in the DRC and Kenya, but she's going to be in Europe and that's going to be interesting for me. Now, when she's the outsider going to tell a story of the natives of Europe, that's going to be so interesting for me.
To see it. I can't wait. This point that you're making about it's essentially a very different experience having an outsider come in versus one of us essentially going there.
See, okay, let me...
Yes, hello, my name is Ngasii, and I'm going to be singing the song Love Song by Prince Kaybee, featuring me. Every morning you ring in my heart. Not a day goes by without you as my star. The melody that you are to me has me praying whenever apart. Your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love it from top to tail. You are never fail. Your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you till kingdom come. To me, you're the only one. Singing dum da da dum da da dum. Singing dum da da dum da da dum. I swear you are my favorite beat. The kind that lifts me up right off my feet. The it's so easy. I got you on repeat. You see, love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you from time to tail. You will never fail. Your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you to kingdom come. To me, you're the only one. Oh, I hope we are never apart. 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 Oh, I hope we are never apart. 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 'Cause your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you from top to tail. You are never fail. Your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you till kingdom come. To me, you're the only one. Oh, your love is my favorite song. I could sing it all day long. I love you from dawn to day. Oh, you will never fail. So love is my favorite song. I think it all day long. I love you to kingdom come. To me, you're the only one.
Whoa! That was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
you. Hi, Ngasii and